Hello and welcome. So today's video is going to be all about the worst English coronations. Now the ones I've picked out are because bad stuff happened at them, and also there's some where basically really embarrassing stuff happened just all the way through the coronation. A book I used to help me with this is this one here, Crown, Orb and Sceptre, The True Story of English Coronations by David Hilliam. So I used this book in my research for them. Okay, so let's find out what were the worst English coronations. Okay, so a little bit first about how William of Normandy became King of England. William said that Edward the Confessor of England had offered him the throne after Edward had died. But when Edward did die, Harold Godwinson took the throne instead. So William invaded England from Normandy and won the Battle of Hastings, becoming king. Now, the English weren't too pleased with a Norman becoming their king, so there were a few tensions going on at the time. So William was crowned on the 25th of December 1066 at Westminster Abbey. Now everything was going great at the coronation until it came to the recognition where everyone present had to accept William as their king. Now, because there were Normans and Anglo-Saxons present at the coronation, the recognition was read out in both Old English and Norman French. Both sides shouted their answers really loud, and these loud shouts were heard by the guards that were outside the abbey trying to control all of the crowd outside. Now, the guards outside thought that the shouts meant that William was being assassinated, so they immediately set fire to all the houses around the abbey. A riot then started, and all the guests that were inside the abbey ran out of it in fear, leaving William and the bishops left to continue the coronation. So William was really upset by this, and it is said that he personally visited all the people that were affected by the fire. But the incident did leave English mistrust in the Normans. So at Richard's coronation, there was actually several bad, evil omens around the coronation, but at the banquet afterwards was when really bad stuff happened. So Richard's coronation was on the 3rd of September 1189. So the 3rd of September is actually a day that astrologers call an Egyptian day. These were days that was considered unlucky, and there were 2 of them each month. They were also known as Dai Mali or evil days, and that is actually where we get our word dismal from. So another bad omen about Richard's coronation was that a bat appeared in the abbey in the middle of the day and proceeded to just fly around and around Richard's throne. And also there was a peal of bells just around midnight that none of the bishops of the abbey knew about. So the night before Richard's coronation, Richard had actually said that no women and no Jews were allowed to attend. His own mother didn't even attend. But the Jewish community in London decided to ignore the king's command and go to the banquet bearing gifts. But before they reached Westminster Hall, where the banquet was being held, they were set upon and attacked by the London mob. Their friends and families were beaten and killed, and back in the city their houses were burnt down. So Richard was not happy about this incident, and he did have the ringleaders of the mob hanged, but this incident did spark an anti-Jewish feeling that spread around other towns in England. So Edward let his boyfriend Piers Gavestone organise his and his Queen Isabella's coronation. And it is safe to say that the coronation was a complete disaster from beginning to end. So to begin with, the King's Council were not pleased with the amount of favouritism that Edward showed Piers and how Piers took advantage of this. So just before the coronation, the council met with the king and Isabella and said that unless Edward banished peers, they would not attend the coronation. So the coronation could not actually take place properly unless these people of the council were there to be able to swear their oath to the king. Edward managed to calm them down, saying that if they attended the coronation, then he would obey the next Parliament, and the council agreed to this, so disaster averted. So peers wore purple to the coronation. Purple is a colour which was mainly that only royalty were allowed to wear, and he was also put in first place in the coronation, and he was allowed to carry St Edward's crown, and he also had the privilege of being the person to clip the ceremonial spurs onto the king's heel. Now, one earl was so outraged by all of this that he actually had to be physically held back from trying to kill peers then and there. Now, the crowds that were in the abbey watching the coronation were all pushing forward, trying to get a better look at what was going on, and a wall in the abbey ended up falling over, which resulted in the death of a knight called Sir John Bakewell, who was trampled to death in the resulting panic. Now, after the coronation, the banquet was not much better. The coronation had finished at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but when the guests arrived at the banqueting hall, the food was not ready, and it was not actually brought out until after dark, and then none of the food had been prepared or cooked properly. Charles's coronation was on the 2nd of February 1626. Now, his queen, Henrietta Maria, refused to be crowned because she was Catholic and she felt that she could not be crowned in a Protestant church. So Charles went to his coronation on his own. Normally, when a monarch is on their way to the abbey for their coronation, the streets would be lined with people, and there'll be groups of people putting on plays to entertain the monarch, basically saying how great the monarch is. But Charles didn't have any of this because there were fears of a Puritan demonstration. No red or purple velvet could actually be found to make Charles's robe, so Charles turned up at the church wearing white. Now, white is actually seen as the colour of a sacrificial victim. So on the sceptre, the left wing of the dove had broken, so it had been sent off to Charles's goldsmith to be fixed, but it had to be fixed in a hurry, and the goldsmith didn't do a very good job, and you can actually see where it had been refixed. So Charles was not happy about this and had sent it back to the goldsmith to be done again. But the goldsmith, instead of fixing this bit of this old, centuries old artifact, actually made a whole new dove to go on top of it. So the centuries-old sceptre that had been used to crown loads of monarchs wasn't actually all that old anymore and was fairly new. So when Charles entered the abbey, he tripped and he almost fell, but the Duke of Buckingham managed to catch him. A stone from the coronation ring fell out. And when it became time for the people present to declare their allegiance to Charles, for some reason they all stayed quiet. And then, just as the coronation was coming to an end, there was an earthquake. So this time was a very superstitious age, and all of these little things happening were seen as bad omens, which maybe they were. Maybe they were foreshadowing Charles being executed. And Charles was really concerned about these because as he was leaving their abbey, he did cry. So George III had a rather embarrassing coronation. First of all, the day before the coronation, all the workmen that were putting up the decoration and the stands went on strike. Then the Deputy Earl Marshal, Lord Effingham, forgot the sword of state and the canopy. Now the Lord Mayor lent his sword to be used instead of the sword of state, but there was a delay in the coronation while everyone rushed around trying to find a canopy. Now, when it came to taking their Holy Communion, George was not sure whether he should take his crown off or not. And he did ask the Archbishop whether he should, but the Archbishop didn't know. So the Archbishop asked another bishop, and this bishop didn't know. So George took his crown off anyway. And then when his Queen Charlotte, tried to take her crown off, she found that the crown was actually stuck to her hair. So George told her, yeah, that is fine, she could just leave her crown on. But then in George's crown, one of the largest stones fell out. Now, everyone arrived late to the banquet because of the delay in the coronation while they were trying to find their canopy. But when they did arrive, they found out that there were no chairs of state for the king or queen to sit in. So the king's champion, Lord Talbot, had actually spent ages teaching his horse how to walk backwards out of the room so he didn't have to turn his back on the king or queen. But he actually taught his horse too well, so that when he went to enter the banqueting hall, the horse would only walk in backwards, showing its arse to the king or queen. So that was a few of the bad and embarrassing stuff that has happened at the coronations of the monarchs in England and then one in Britain. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.